Next, we have Dr. Dominic Chan, Associate Professor in Practice in Department of Decision Sciences and Managerial Economics, and the Associate Director of EMBA at CHK. Dr. Chan is the founder of Decisive Consulting Limited, a management consulting firm, and co-founder of Dark Horse Investment that focuses on early-stage technology investment. He is a frequent speaker at conferences, business seminars, and university lectures. He is also a corporate trainer, executive coach, and visiting lecturer. May we now invite Dr. Chan to give his speech. Dr. Chan, please.
So, hi, my name is Dominic Chan. I'm one of the associate professor in CHK, so I have quite a few familiar faces. Being a professor of practice, I am not doing a lot of research. My background is actually management consulting and a bit of coaching and corporate training. So today, when I was asked to do, how should I do case studies, I thought, okay, because a professor of practice, I will share what I do in practice. So what I've shared today doesn't have a lot of backup on research. It's more how I do it, how I engage people. So inspired by what we've just heard, I like questioning as well. I like questions. I like closed question is okay, open question even better, but the best type of question is counter question. Reply by asking another question. So before I start my slide, because I was just inspired by Professor Lu's talk, let me give you some examples of counter questions. So I do corporate training. So sometimes CFO will challenge, why are we spending so much money on coaching, on corporate training? So one day a CFO said to the CEO, hey, what if we spend all this money, train all our people, and then they leave? So the CEO, instead of answering that, he asked a counter question. So he asked the CFO and said, well, what if we don't train them and they all stay? You see how we do counter question is even better. Why? Because when we ask a counter question to the person who asked us a question, and if you ask in a very critical, very targeted way, you make the person become aware of the answer instead of you telling them. And they will remember it for life, right? Let me give you another example. I was at our CUHK EMBA graduation class 2018. There was a dinner 2 nights ago. One of the students said, when he started, when he decided to do the EMBA at CHK, one of his friends asked him, are you sure you're going to earn back all the money that you spent on the course? And he said, I don't know. So 2 years later, now he's a graduate. And his friend asked him, now that you have graduated, do you think you can earn back all the tuition fee that you spent on the EMBA? His answer is, still, I don't know. But being a graduate of the EMBA program, he said, well, now I know if I didn't do it, I would have regretted it for the rest of my life. So while I was listening to this sharing from the student, I said, well, next time, go to your friend and say, hey, you asked me whether am I sure I'm going to earn back all the money I spent on the course? Ask him, hey, how do you put a price tag on something that is actually priceless? So instead of answering the question, counter with a question, if you can. Okay, why do we want to do that now? Today, I'm going to share with you just some of the things that I do in my class, in my corporate training. Well, of course, the reason being, we want to make the class or corporate training very engaging. We want the student to respond, right? Engaging. We want to make it fun. We want to make it memorable. But just as I said just now, most important of all, I want them to derive the answer themselves, become self-aware, and the answer should come from the student, not from us. I write letters to my son ever since he was 4 months old, and now he's 4 years old. So writing letters to my son, I find it's very similar to teaching in classes. There are 3 levels of teaching. As a secondary school teacher or professor, well, it's also like writing a letter to my son. Stage number 1, we tell them the theory and we tell them the result. So theory and practice, we give everything to the student. Now that's teaching, 教, right? Now level 2, if we give them the theory and then we ask the students, hey, what do you think the result? How do you measure using the theory? How do you derive the result? I think that's level 2. I would call that guiding or 導, right? 教導. But for level 3, which is my dream, I hope I can achieve that, is I don't even tell them the theory. I talk to the students and say, hey, what do you think the theory should be? They derive the theory through a discussion with us. I don't tell them the theory, they tell us, they tell me. And then, okay, so now you have the theory, go and use it in practice and tell me the result. I think that would be inspiring. So I hope we can make the student become self-aware through engaging method. So that's my dream. I mean, I'm still learning to do that. Okay, so now I'm going to do sharing of my, how I do things. So there's no really not using any particular cases, not Harvard Business School case, or it's just something in practice. But I'm going to do it in 2 separate sessions. One is if we do have the kind of the luxury of using PowerPoint, so with slides. But then sometimes we don't, right? We're just in the classroom, we're just talking to students with no slide, but maybe a whiteboard, maybe then how about we do it without the slides? Because we don't always need the slide. By the way, I was with McKinsey for 3 years. And one of the things that our communication specialist, the person who checked our PowerPoint slide, who checked every single word before we show to the client, before we do the, and she always tells us, the PowerPoint is not your presentation, you are. So, when I was at McKinsey, in those days, you bring your laptop, sometimes you even bring your own projector. And, in those days, the projector and the laptop, they don't always work together well. So it breaks down and something. It happens all the time in those days. So if you rely solely on the slide, then you are stuck because you have nothing to say. So our communication specialists at McKinsey always say, you are the presentation. Even though you make a beautiful presentation, you can do without the slides. So I'm going to try to do that as well. Okay, so number 1, how do we do it with slides? So let me show you some examples. I like to use this to ask the audience to guess something that I want to say. Now, I use this in, by the way, it's very interesting because usually I just share the case. But today, I have to tell you the story behind sharing of the case because today we're talking about how to use them. Okay, so the background is I am an angel investor and I'm explaining to startup what investors are actually looking for, what angel investors actually look for in a startup so that the startup can go and prepare the pitch to the liking of the angel investors. So this is what I show them. 7 things. Now I'm going to ask you guys to guess it as well. I'm going to show you 7 things and you're going to tell me, in the mind of an angel investor, what do you think we value most? Number 1, what do you think? Angel investor looking at startup. The team, exactly. The team is very, very important. We look for people who are enthusiastic, who would not stop until they become successful, who are competent, who are very, very energetic. And number 2, the idea, exactly. Now, don't get me wrong, idea of a startup is very, very, very important. But if I have to rank them, I still rank people first because angel investors are actually investing in people who have ideas. So people, number 1, ideas, definitely. Number 3, when we look in a startup, what do we look for? Now this is a basketball game, of course. Exactly, not only competitive, unfair, totally unfair. We are looking for a startup with unfair advantage. So I'm probably investing in the tall one. If you're playing basketball, the world is not fair, let's face it. The more unfair advantage that you have, the better. Pattern, big market share already, exclusive relationship with a distributor, something like that. Okay, number 4. Now this one is very hard to guess. I have seen many, many different answers. Resources, that's a good one, that's a good one. What else? A glass of water in the desert. Need space. No, these are all good guesses. But what I'm trying to show them is, I'm the investor. If I gave you a glass of water, I want to make sure I give you sufficient water to get across the desert. Because I don't want a startup to be in need of funding in 3 months' time or 6 months' time. Because you know how long it takes from the day the startup say, I want some funding, to the day they actually get the check? 3 months would be very good. 6 months, not uncommon. Very rarely we see startups get the money right away. And it is very, very distracting for the founders to keep looking for investors, knocking on the door, doing pitches. They should be building their business. So I want to make sure if I give you this round of money, it will bring you to at least the next milestone. I don't want you to be engaged and knock on investors' door again. So it better be sufficient. Okay, number 5. What is that? Scalability. Yes, if we do Photoshop, this is you're scaling up. Well, there are different types of angel investors. Some of us look for big scalability. We look for a company that would expand. We don't want you to just have one shop. We want you to have 100 shops. We don't want you to be in Hong Kong only. We want you to be in Singapore and the rest of the world. So we look for scalability. And number 6. Okay, this one is more obvious. Return, healthy financials, profitability. Unless you are WhatsApp, unless you are Uber, unless you are Instagram, where you have never made money, but you have hundreds of millions of users. Okay, then I would say, okay, you don't have to have a profitable business. But otherwise, for most businesses, you better have profitability. You better have a sound financial model. When you scale up, it's going to become bigger. But there's a reason why WhatsApp, Instagram, and there's a reason why they don't make money and yet they command huge numbers of evaluation. Well, because if you can reach 900 million users like WhatsApp, you become strategically important to Facebook. And Facebook doesn't want Apple to have WhatsApp. That's why they pay a big price. But are you building a business like this? I don't know. But so for most businesses, it better have a good financial projection. And for angel investors, number 7, exit. Exactly. Now, you see, the way I do this, right? I have classes when students come to me and say, hey, I didn't take any note during your class, but I remember everything. I said, is that a compliment? Or is that, oh, totally, okay, that's good. You didn't write any note. I was afraid that I didn't say anything useful, so he didn't take any note. But he said, wow, I remember everything. Okay, one more example. This is in the social innovation class training. So I was telling them, why social media how social media has changed social innovation. Okay, so there are several things. Number 1, social media. How has it changed social innovation? Can you do that in the past? What is this trying to show you? Connecting people, connecting millions or even hundreds of millions of people. There was no easy way to do that in the past, but now social network. Well, that's first of all, so it connects people together. Not only they connect them. Now, this one is hard to guess. You get feedback very quickly. People would like or don't like whatever you're trying to promote, or movement, or product, or whatever, right? Social innovation, you get instant feedback from a lot of people. That didn't happen before the social network come along. And what's this? You couldn't mobilize so many people before. Not only connecting them, you could not mobilize so many people so easily before. So social network, connect people, get instant feedback, wow, and promote and mobilize people. And what's this? We all played this when we were a kid. Match. Whatever you try to provide, it becomes more tailor-made, custom-made. It becomes much better match for the audience. And also, well, this one is easy. Therefore, we are able to also have achieve much higher cost benefit. So again, whatever you teach, whatever you share, right? Think of ways whether can your point to be put across in a field diagram, and then you can try to get the audience to guess what you're trying to say. And you find this probably more memorable, and the answer usually can come from the audience. So this is just one of the techniques that I like. Okay, another one is also quite common is using a lot of acronym. Whatever you're trying to share through a story, we try to find a way to make it more memorable by using acronym. So this is an acronym that I just make up, AIM, right? Acronym is meaningful. I just make that up. So, but let me share some of the things that I have used before with a story. Now, this is Mr. Ball. Why do I call that? And you see a guy juggling. So I will start with, by the way, this is for coaching. This is for coaching, life coaching. So I would start with a story that I heard. It was many years ago. Apparently, it was the CEO of Coca-Cola Corporation. By the way, I don't drink Coca-Cola anymore. You shouldn't either. But this is the CEO of Coca-Cola. He said, you know what? In life, basically, people are struggling or juggling. You juggle a lot of things. And sometimes, 5 or 6 balls at a time. What do you juggle with? You juggle career, you juggle family, you juggle health, you juggle a lot of things. But, it's not easy. And sometimes, whoops, unfortunately, something dropped. And soon you realize not all these balls are the same. Some of them are actually made of glass. Some of them made of rubber. For those who are actually made of rubber, if it drops, it bounces back. But those that make of glass, if you drop them, it shatters. What are the things that are made of glass? What balls that you juggle are made of glass? Health. Exactly. Relationship, family. These are all made of glass. Don't drop them. But career, in a way, is a rubber ball. You don't want to drop it, but if you have to keep holding on to something, better hold on to health and family. So I start with a story like that, and then so people remember, right? I mean, I didn't make up this story. I mean, Mr. Coca-Cola did. And so I introduce an acronym, Mr. Ball, what are these? So number 1, M, Mr. M is for your mind. So what do we do to refresh ourselves? How do we keep us mentally healthy? Mind. R is relationship. So we should maintain and keep good relationship with our family, with our friends. And B is for body. Are you keeping yourself healthy? Your body? And then asset is, asset including what you would earn, you have saved, and also what you're still earning maybe teaching or doing whatever as a living. So asset, financials, right? And then L for learning. I think ever since we are born, we love learning, right? No doubt. Learning is always fun, actually, for everybody. When you learn something, getting to know something new, it's always good. And finally, leisure. What do you do we are all human beings. We have to have some leisure. So I try to tell the story of juggling different things, and then I use Mr. Ball as an acronym. I make this up, by the way, because I needed to something that to easy to remember and meaningful. So this is one of the things. Let's try another one. Okay, happiness. Okay, I'm going to show you something I have never shown in any class. I totally made this up a few weeks ago. I've only shown it to my wife. Don't worry, it's all decent, so okay. Only my wife has seen this, but it's all decent. So I was thinking, what is happiness? No, this is completely new. I'll try this with this audience. So I start with, happiness is actually a choice. We have our own choices about how to be happy. So it's what we actually prefer. Prefer. What do we prefer? And so it stands for, P is purpose. Remember, this is how to become happy. So find the purpose, and then R is for relationship. Are we maintaining good relationship? And how are we interacting in our environment? And finally, we are happy when we are free. So I think these are the 4 core elements of happiness. But I want to break it down into different things. So first, remember, happiness is a choice. It's what do you prefer? So right? So what is P, right? Purpose. I think purpose is all about meaning, something meaningful. We are all looking for something meaningful. So M is, I will use the word mean. So we all want to do something meaningful, and then we want to do something enlightening. So it's not just meaningful, but also can make us evolve, make us enlighten. And then we all like that sense of achievement. You know, when we can do something successful, and then we achieve something, achievement. And N is for new learning. As I just said, we always try to learn something new. I think if you can find these meaningful things, then you find a purpose. But then next is relationship. I've never tried this before, but have you ever seen dogs sniffing the backside of another dog? You probably have not seen it in real life, but you heard of it, right? By the way, this is how the dog tried to find another friendly dog. So remember, relationship is about sniffing others' bottom. It's not. No, it's not. But don't go and do that in real life. No. But now you remember, relationship is sniff. What is sniff? So what is your relationship with the society? Are you happy in the society? Well, for Hong Kong nowadays, a lot of people are not happy, myself included. Society, S. And then, what is your relationship with nature? Are you seeing enough trees, sun, stars, flowers, nature? And what is your relationship with yourself? With yourself. When is the last time you talked to yourself? No, I don't mean. Oh, by the way, when you see people doing this, right? What do you call this? No, it's called mental illness. No. I for yourself. What is your relationship with yourself? Are you happy with yourself? And F for family. Most important, I think. Yeah. And then finally, friends. So I think relationship. How are we maintaining good relationship with all these 5 things? Remember, the dogs sniff the backside of another dog. Are we keeping that? Okay, so next one is environment. I want to say, show me your environment. Show me. So is your environment in the society? How do you prepare your home? Most important, we spend a lot of time at home. And then in your workplace, which is occupation, and finally, what is the environment in the world? Where are you in the world? And there's a lot we can learn in Hong Kong, I think, for environment. Okay, just one final one. This is my favorite, by the way. To be happy, we need freedom, right? So freedom. Now, this one I really make it up. I think it's called Fletcher. Do you have financial freedom? I don't mean you don't need to have a lot of money, by the way. You can be financial free, not being Li Ka-shing. In fact, I think he has less freedom than I have, actually, if you come to think of it. But he has more money, that's for sure. Financial freedom. And then L is location. Can you want to go anywhere, can you go right now? Right now? Yes, right, location freedom. You don't need it. Yes, go. Yes. So, but do we actually have it, or do you have to be somewhere? Someone tell you you have to be somewhere all the time. And then unbound mind, right? U for unbound mind, Fletcher, right? Why unbound mind, right? Because often it's not people tell you that you can't. Often it's you tell yourself that you can't. Let me share a little story. My wife and I went to France for 3 months to study French. It was 2006. And we had a great time. We've never been students together, and learning a language is our dream. So we did that for French, and then we did that for Japanese. And so we came back, so we were traveling, we were learning, and we went to a French school for foreigner. We had a great time, and we became intermediate in French. When we came back, we told our friends, wow, it's awesome, that's great. It didn't spend much money. We have financial freedom, we were location free, we were, and also like mindset freedom, and also financial freedom, location freedom, time freedom, yeah. But our friends said, so I said, if you think it's so awesome, why don't you do it as well? And then what do my friends say? Well, I'm not like you, oh, I have this, I have that. I can't, because the only difference between me and my friend was the mindset. There was nothing else that was different, really. The only thing different was the mindset. I said I can do it, he said he can't. No more, money he has. Time, whatever. So we need unbound mind, right? And then time. Again, you want to go anywhere, anytime, right? And finally, choice, freedom to make choices. And health. Is your health enabling to have free choices? Your health is enabling to be free. So I think for freedom, these are the things that would make you happy. Now, okay, this is, by the way, this is way, way complicated because you can follow the tree structure. I started with happiness, with pref, and then with all the, but I'm just trying to demonstrate how we can, if we can, spend some time, think about an appropriate acronym that would bring out the key points of what you're trying to tell people. So purpose, it was right? Meaningful, right? So relationship, I use a funny one, sniff, and show me your environment, and so on. You can fine tune yours, whatever you're teaching or using in the case. Okay, now, so for the second part, I want to now try to do without slides. Actually, I still have the slide. It's just a cue point. Right? So I would tell you stories. 2 stories, right? In fact, since I don't need the slide, I'm going to turn on the lighting. Okay, this one is about mindset. I use it when I'm teaching problem solving, change management, and so on. So 2 years ago, I was doing a corporate training for a big conglomerate in Hong Kong. They have a lot of subsidiaries in China. So I went to Shenzhen to do a corporate training for all the subsidiaries who went to Shenzhen. So I was using the PowerPoint. I was using the whiteboard. I write a lot of material on the whiteboard, and then I need to wipe it. So I tried to using this, and guess what? When I wipe, it doesn't come off at all. Now, I studied in UK, so the first thing I said was, oh, sugar. Now, I immediately checked the pen, and then it is a whiteboard pen. It wasn't a perm ink pen. But why is that happening, right? So I get some tissue, I pour some water, and then I start wiping with the tissue, a wet tissue. It still doesn't come off properly, but it's smudge. It's a good start. At least it's water soluble. And then so the corporate trainee come out and help me with the wet tissue, and then they start wiping. And after a while, we clean the board. And then they said, oh dear, the lecturer the following day really loved to use the whiteboard, so it's going to be a busy day tomorrow. And then I thought, I look at the board, I thought, wait a minute. And then I actually noticed there was a little hole at the top left corner. So I used the pen again, I put a dot in that hole, and then I used the thing, and I swipe it, and it came right off. And then for the next 3 seconds, I did something that I make the whole class jump. Guess what I did? What did I do? I didn't smash it exactly, but I ripped off the cover. You know how these whiteboard, when it comes with a protective layer, a membrane, and you're supposed to rip it off after you install it. That whiteboard, the sticker, the membrane was still there. And then I asked the students, how many years have this training center been operating? It was lots, that company in China was for a long, long time. So my question to you is the same question to the students on that day. Why do you think that problem has existed for so long and nobody actually found the problem? What do you think? What was stopping people? What kind of mindset was stopping people from discovering the problem? Somebody else's problem. That is a big one. None of my business. Seriously, if someone has a mindset of none of my business, they're going to sit and no action. Seriously, that is exactly happened in our society for some people. Myself included, maybe. What else? That was one of the major reasons, because a lot of people thinking none of my business. What else? They make presumption. They make assumption that this training center has been operating, therefore such problems should not exist, and therefore we don't see it even though it exists. Clearly exists, right, the problem, but they assume the place should have been fully operational, right? This is the number 2 point I really want to build on. If I say, right, imagine even the wet tissue could not clean the board clean, what would happen then? Then they would have investigated further. So number 2, the key thing, right? Number 1, none of my business. Number 2, if there exists a suboptimal solution, people tend to just let it slide. There is a suboptimal solution. It works, right? It works. It's not perfect, but it works. This is precisely why things don't change a lot of the time, because there exists a suboptimal solution and people become comfortable with the suboptimal solution. So you see how I use this case is to tell people what would be the right mindset. I usually talk about this at the beginning of the class, or a training, a corporate training, problem solving, change management, why people don't change, why people let problems slide. So this is one of the example. By the way, then I would tell them the correct mindset would have been, how was I different on that day? How did I discover the problem? Well, I did not compromise. I have been using a whiteboard with a whiteboard pen for thousands or tens of thousands of times. That was not the result I was expecting. I refuse to accept such result. That's the mindset we should have. Only this kind of mindset will help you to find all sorts of problems, and don't just sit around and say none of my business. It is my business. I want to be proactive. That's the mindset. Now, let me share another story with you. Again, say no slide, just stories, right? So then I will share another story. I said I saw this from Facebook, so it must be true. And did you realize we only check if the story is true on 1st of April? Okay, so this husband and wife, right? The husband asked the wife, "Hey, honey, how come every time when you cook the ham, not the slices ham, it's the big ham, right? The big one, not slices. Why do you always cut the big ham into 2 halves and then you put it in the oven? I mean, our oven is quite big. Why do you do that?" And the wife said, "I don't know. That's how I see my mom does it all the time, right? Ever since I was a little girl, this is how my mom did it." So on Sunday, when they have a family lunch, the husband asked the mother-in-law, so 外母大人, right? So how come your daughter said, every time you cook the ham, you cut it in halves and you put it in the oven? Guess what the mother-in-law said? My mother also did that. Yeah. So grandma also did that, right? No, that's a good answer. That's a good answer, yes. But no, she said something else. She said because the oven was too small. So she has to cut it in half, and then she can kind of juggle and put it in. What is this story trying to tell us? A lot of the time, we are like the wife in the story. We repeat something that was handed down to us, be it conventional wisdom, be it standard working procedure. We never understood why we do things in a certain way, and we just keep repeating it. I'm not saying we should break all the tradition. I'm not saying we should break all the working procedure. I'm just saying if you don't understand the reason that you're doing something, and when the world is changing so fast, the oven has become bigger, the world has changed, you cannot adapt because you didn't know why it was done in the first place. How can you then change your behavior to adapt to the new world? So again, this story, I will use it during a problem solving or change management or strategic review meeting, and try to set the mindset of the audience before we start talking about accepting change and all that. Okay, well, how are we doing in time? Because I know we overrun before. When can? 5 minutes. Only 5 minutes? So I hope my session being cut short a little bit. Okay. Okay, that's okay. Because I do want you to have a good lunch. And it's important to have sufficient time to eat. Otherwise, it's bad for your health. Okay, one last story. Oh, maybe, sorry. Okay, in that case, right, I've told you enough story. So let's show you how I use games during training or teaching. So I will tell you the purpose of the game afterwards. Okay, this is a little game where I saw this from SAT question, US exam, SAT, mathematics. Okay, I won't tell you the question first. I will tell you that the answers, the choices of the answer, 2 pi meters square. Sorry, this is 4 pi meters square, 8 pi meters square, and then C is 16 pi meters square, and then D, is it working? Oh. Oops. Okay, so A is 4 pi, B is 8 pi, C is 16 pi, and then D is 16, no pi, but meter square, and finally E is 32 pi meter square. Okay, now I tell you the question. I don't know the question. I have lost the question. So in the absence of the question, you have to tell me which of these 5 answers are the correct one. And what was the question? So 4 pi meter square, 8 pi meter square, 16 pi meter square, 16 no pi meter square, and then 32 pi meter square. Are you ready to vote? Okay, so who thinks A is the correct answer? Okay, we have 1 in the audience. Okay. Who thinks B is the correct answer? No one. C. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And D. We have quite a few. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 8. And then finally E. Okay, no one. So some undecided. Okay, so D is the most popular one. Can I have those who said D is the correct answer? What was the question?
Because it is asking what is the difference. Because we can see from A, B, C, E.
Yeah.
4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, 16 times 2 is 32.
Yeah.
And also the maintenance is
Pi.
No pi.
Yeah.
So definitely I think it's more appropriate as the answer.
Because it's the odd one out.
Yes.
So you chose the odd one out. And what was the question?
Because there's some relationship between A, B, C, and E.
Yeah.
2 times 2 up.
And so therefore, the question was, if the answer was D, what was the question?
The question is, what is the difference amongst the foreign answers?
Okay, okay. Anyone else who said D? And then, what's that?
What is the area of the square?
Area of a square with 4 meters per side. But why did you choose D? Why? Why did you choose D?
That is the answer.
But you, before you know the question, you think that was the answer? Okay.
Which is the other things?
Okay, so let's ask those who think C. What was the question? Because I think Andrew said C, right?
The area of
Area of
a circle.
a circle, 4 meter radius. Why C, but why not anything else?
Because 4 will be a trap, so you have 4 of the radius, so A is not correct, and A is not the square of a number.
It's not a square number. But I could have asked for two circle, right? I can say area of 2. Because it can be anything, right? I don't know the question, right? But you chose this one. That's okay. A, right? So we have 1 in A. Why A?
2m is the radius of the circle.
Yes, but why A? Why do you choose A? Because it could without the question, it could have been anything, right? But why A?
The area of the circle.
I know, but if you say it's a square number, then I will have to ask you why not C. Right? It's a fair question, right? If you choose this one because it's a square number, then I will ask why not the other square number. Okay, now so before I give you my answer, right? There are 2 ways of looking at this question, 2 perspectives. One is you are the one who came up with the question, the SAT question. B, everybody else. Which perspective did you use to answer this question just now? Were you thinking as the person who came up with the question, or were you everybody else? Are you sure? Are you sure? I think you all thinking as just everybody else. Now, if I invite you to really, really think you are the person who came up with the question in the first place, what would you be thinking then? To start with, you did not guess what the question was. You know the question. So you actually know the question and the answer, actually. But in designing the question, what would you need? If you have the question and you already have the answer, what do you need as a person? You want the 4 wrong answers, but you want them to be similar, tricky, right? If the question was the area of a square, almost no one will fail to answer the question, right? You just design a simple question. If you say, oh, what is the area of the square, where everything else has a pi, that was a giveaway, right? So I can safely assume that wouldn't be the question because it's too easy for SAT. So therefore, I can eliminate this, actually. So therefore, the question is indeed about a square, a circle, because square would have been too easy for everybody to answer. The 4 incorrect but tricky answer would have been, correct answer is pi r squared. Incorrect answer include 2 pi r, pi r, 2 pi r, pi r squared, and 2 pi r squared. These would have been the confusing answer to the student. If r equals 4, then this is 16 pi, this is 4 pi, 8 pi. Sorry, this is the correct answer, r squared. Yeah, 16 and 32 pi. You see all the incorrect answers are all there. These are all the confusing answers. So in other words, what is this question trying to illustrate is that when we do problem solving, can you really think from the other person's perspective? If you do a negotiation, can you get in the head of your opponent to think like the opponent, think like the other party? If you do, suddenly it all makes sense. It's not guesswork. You know exactly what the other person is thinking. And his or her behavior becomes very, very rational if you can really get into their head. So I use this game in negotiation and problem solving and game theory, if we can get into other people's head. I didn't invent this, by the way. I read a lot of books, and then I try to remember. But then sometimes I found when you hear a story, when even the storyteller don't know a lot of the interesting thing about the story, it inspired me and say, I can use this story in this situation where the person who told me the story didn't even think about. So we just have to keep our eyes open when we collect these stories. And sometimes your own experience. The whiteboard example was a true experience that I had in 2016. So anyway, I think we are running out of time, and I don't want to get in the way of your lunch, so I will skip all the other ones. So hopefully, I just share some of the technique where we can use acronym, we can tell stories, we can play games, and we can ask the audience to guess something. It's just some of the technique that I use. I find it sometimes quite useful and engaging. Keep your eyes open for stories. You're welcome to copy all these stories and games. I didn't invent all of them. I invent some of them. So thank you.
Thanks so much for the inspiring speech. We may have one or two questions at most. I'm sure all of you are very interested and should have some question to Dominic.
By the way, I always clean my board after me. So it's a good habit, by the way.
Any question? Yeah. And maybe I ask one now. Dominic, then you teaching entrepreneurship and also about social innovation, and you use case a lot teaching.
Yes.
Right. Do you have any concern or challenge when you use case teaching for entrepreneurship or social innovation?
I think the only thing is if the case is appropriate for the audience, meaning do the audience actually have similar background? Because some cases, if you quote, it needs some cultural background, then it doesn't work. I've seen this happen in some classes. So that would be one consideration. The choice of cases have to be understood or culturally relevant to the audience.
Any example?
I was in a class we took EMBA class to Cambridge, and one of the professor uses a British case. It was some history of England. It was one of the revolution, but then it was not the one that are usually well known by non-British. So when he showed that case using the video, we were quite lost. So that kind of, if we use Chinese cases and then we have our foreign friends in the audience, that would also be hard for them to understand.
So, CHK, then what kind of cases do you use?
Usually, it's safer to use more well-known cases like big corporation, and at least it's not quite cultural sensitive. Right? If you tell people Google or Baidu, right, people always know. So that kind of cases would be more appropriate, I guess.
Yeah, but how about startups? Say we have some local startups. Do you use these sort of cases in our EMBA class?
For startup, I usually do coaching rather than cases. In cases, yes, then I guess, for example, this is an appropriate one, not the one that's challenging. Some startup need to pivot. The term pivot is when things are actually not going well, but then they are trying to look at some bright spot or something that at least is working, and then they optimize the whole organization towards that one bright spot, and if they can make it happen, maybe they can have a business pivoting, right? So I would show them a video of Minted.com, for example. It's a lady who is a second enterprise, and it was failing at the beginning, but then she pivoted, she found her niche point, and then she was sharing that story. That kind of story would be quite appropriate for startup, because they all have to pivot at some point. I've never seen startup running so smoothly all the way. So knowing that it worked, it helps them. It kind of encouraged them. But then also learning the lessons. It's not just pivot anything. It's what really, really is the bright spot of whatever, however small, however little group of customer that is working. So that kind of lesson is valuable for the startup.